Hello and welcome to episode 544 of the Yellow Wall Pods. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will have a jam-packed episode after the Almala deal fell through on Friday. Dortmund hosted Roma in a friendly on Saturday. On Monday and Tuesday, the club announced the arrival of Giannis Konstantelias. I hope that's right. And Joey Veerman. And of course, we will have the first official match on Saturday as Dortmund host Bayern Munich in the Franz Beckenbauer Supercup. For all that and more, like Jan Ramay joining FC Copenhagen on loan, I'm joined by Matthias Zug. Hello, Matthias. Welcome back after a long time. Good to have you finally on again.
Yeah. It's been a long, insanely busy summer, but it's frustrating because I've wanted to hop on multiple times, and then it's just work and life have kind of not allowed me to. So it's good to be on and talk about finally, transfers that actually did take place. At least Dortmund didn't wait till the last minute. But how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. And also here, Lars Palmer. Hello, Lars. How are you doing?
Konstantelias, Stefan. It's not that difficult.
Yeah, I'm... I don't know why I was struggling with this. I was actually standing at a gyro place in Philly yesterday to celebrate basically the second arrival of a Greek national player with Konstantelias, and I asked these guys, who are of course Greek, in the gyro shop, and they all told me great things about him, so all very exciting. But let's start in chronological order. Because, of course, on the last episode, together with Farouk, we did discuss Almala and how he would fit into the system. And, of course, as we know now, that did not come to terms. As Ruhnachrichten reported on Friday, Cologne rejected Dortmund's final offer on Thursday, which was around, I think, just a total of 50 million euros, which is obviously below the reported demands of Cologne. Who wanted a fixed sum of 50 million and then bonuses on top of it. The news broke on Friday that Dortmund are officially pulling out of the negotiations with Cologne for the transfer. And Lars Ricken was actually on record with Funke Mediengruppe saying that Dortmund will not make another offer for the player. So fast forward a couple of days, and Dortmund do have two new players instead, like I already said, Giannis Konstantelias and, of course, Joey Veerman. But let's talk about the Almala deal first. Lars, I know you were a little bit higher on him than Farouk and myself. Are you sad that this didn't happen, or have the new signings sort of softened the blow for you?
Obviously, they have, because I'm a kid. And shiny new toys are shiny and new, so getting two new players softens the blow. I think if this had taken, a couple of weeks or whatever, or maybe dragged on until deadline day, then perhaps the Almala deal falling through would have been even worse, just because you spend all that time thinking, what's now going to happen. And obviously they made two signings, so that's kind of fine. I'm kind of caught in two minds, because on the one hand, I can understand the sort of Moneyball approach of getting two players for the price of one, even though they don't play the same position. Obviously, Konstantelias is kind of taking the place that Almala would have taken, presumably, at least at some point of the season. You would expect a new signing of that caliber to start in the position next to Carezas, if that makes sense, which is where Almala probably would have played. Veerman more of a central midfielder. So that's the one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it, and it's perhaps one that I'm more inclined to than you or Farouk would have been, is that I think of those three guys, Almala is, in my opinion, quite clearly the best player and also the one with the most potential. And the different approach would then have been to strengthen the team, with a bona fide star signing, instead of making two more signings in a region that they've made quite a few times before. I mean, if you look at the squad now, basically half the team costs them somewhere between 20 and 30 million. And sometimes those deals haven't really worked out. I mean, we want to look at someone like Karni Chukwuemeka, for example, Fabio Silva, I wouldn't call, a hit so far on the transfer market. So I can understand both viewpoints, and ultimately I think having two new players to look at and figure out how they will fit into this team is obviously very exciting, but there's still at least a sizable part of me that will wonder, how would it have looked with Elmala, and it's going to feel especially bad if he ends up signing for RB Leipzig, which is kind of the only other viable option as of recording.
Yep, that is correct. Matthias, what's your view on the Elmala deal not coming to fruition?
Well, I mean, Köln wanted more than Dortmund were willing to offer, and that's the end of it. I mean, I'm glad Dortmund didn't overstretch, that they said no. I mean, they were willing to spend a lot of money. Let's, not make any bones about it. It was going to be very, very expensive, but they said no. I mean, this is our pain threshold, and we've got these other players. We have a plan B. And I actually really appreciate the fact that there is a plan B, or that there was one, versus, who knows? The fact that it happened so quickly afterwards tells me that they were like, okay, well, if Elmala doesn't happen, then we will go this route because we have those funds, and we're just going to transition them over into two players into areas of need. And as such, I'm okay with it. I think Elmala is a really good player. I think he's a very good talent, but I do believe that two players in positions of need trump one very expensive player in one position of need. So I'm okay with it. Overall, I'd say I'm optimistic. I have to say I know nothing about Greek football and watch none of it, so I have absolutely no insights into him. But as far as Joey Veerman, I think there's definitely some room to chat about there. But I'm okay with it. If he ends up going to Leipzig, it's frustrating to one degree, but I guess that's just the business. Leipzig have the money, and if they're willing to meet Köln's high demands, then so be it.
Yeah, let's hope he doesn't become an absolute world-class talent at Leipzig. That would, of course, not be ideal for Dortmund, to say the least. And the what could have been would have been view of regret might increase that way. But obviously no way of knowing. But yeah, let's talk about the new guys. But yeah, it's just nice to know that Dortmund were prepared for an alternative scenario, and it feels nice that they had something lined up this quickly. So yeah, Giannis Konstantelias, 23 years old already, you almost want to say, considering the youth of many other signings. Of course, from PAOK Thessaloniki, 5-year deal. Dortmund are paying around 30 million plus bonuses, and he'll earn around 3.5 million euros as per Ruhrnachrichten. He was wearing number 65 in Greece. That is not going to happen here. For his national team, he is number 18. In Dortmund, he will wear number 45. Hopefully not a reference to any US presidents. At PAOK, he was basically, since he was 10 years old, interrupted by a loan spell to Eupen in the Belgian league. I don't actually know if him and Carretzas did play against each other at any sort, because there is a bit of an age gap. I think Carretzas, in fact, has named Giannis as sort of his role model or idol or whatever. And of course, Carretzas' dad is a big PAOK supporter, but more on that in a minute. He has played 190 games for PAOK, scoring 44 goals, 26 assists. This season already, he has scored 3 goals and 1 assist during the Europa League qualifiers. All of those came against Dynamo Kiev, as then PAOK did crash out against RC Anderlecht in the Europa League qualifiers, and Giannis did not really score there or assist there, but he has also already got 18 senior caps and scored 4 goals for his national team. And of course, I think it deserves more than just to mention that he is a huge identification figure for PAOK, and that last year he was already on the verge of signing with Stuttgart, but that deal fell through because the Ultras pressured the manager, Ivan Savilis, to the extent that he did stop the deal in the end. But this year, it was different in the sense that the deal went through, but of course there was still quite the amount of protests with fans storming the front offices and really airing their discontent, and also very curious that when he landed in Dortmund at the airport, there was already a fan holding a phone, FaceTiming with PAOK Ultras to basically demand some sort of explanation. And Ronach did report that he was sort of trying to convince them that he still loves PAOK through and through, but that this was his decision to join Dortmund, and that he wasn't just shipped off by the club. So in terms of player profile, I'll be honest, I also can't add as much. He is, I would say, more similar to Carretzas in terms of that he is what we call a half space 10 who will more roam the left half space. And according to Ole Burg, he is a better fit to the current system than, say, a natural winger. I think he referenced Elmala in this. And in terms of technical attributes, I think he is a bit more pronounced than his physical attributes. He's definitely not a speed demon like Elmala would have been, but he's not exactly slow either. But what you can of course tell is that his technique is pretty good. He has a very excellent first touch. He's ambidextrous. He's a good dribbler, and he's also very good at timing his runs. But Lars, I don't know if you have much more to add. I personally have not watched a trillion highlights now, and obviously YouTube scouting is one thing. Actually seeing a player over 90 minutes in action is a whole nother. And of course, how do you think he'll fit in? And do you think we're looking at a really good synergy between him and Carretzas going forward as like a Greek double 10?
Well, I can't speak on the last part because I haven't seen them together. I actually think in a funny way that Konstantelias is one of the few players that you can actually do some, YouTube scouting on, because there are quite a few compilations of not only highlights, but every touch against, AEK or Panathinaikos or even Dynamo Kyiv, as you alluded to earlier. So I've watched a lot of video on Konstantelias. And I am very intrigued. You already mentioned the technical ability. First touch is very good. His movement, quite good. Athleticism, definitely a bit of a question mark. I think he looks kind of slight. His top speed in the Europa League last season was somewhere in the realm of, I want to say, 33.8 or so. So functionally athletic, I would say, but definitely not, a superb athlete like Elmala would have been. In that sense, I was at first quite curious why he would be the alternative to Elmala, because one train of thought might have been to sign someone who's closer to Elmala in terms of his profile. But at the end of the day, I think Konstantelias has a lot of qualities that will help Dortmund, perhaps more so than Elmala in the Bundesliga, because playing for PAOK, one of the leading clubs in Greece, he already knows the feeling of being in a dominant team, and that's definitely something that he has in common with Joey Veerman, whom we will talk about a little bit later on. I would say the difference to Carretzas is, from what I can tell, obviously massively caveated, if that's a word. I think whereas Carretzas is more of a creator, Konstantelias likes create for himself, not meaning that in a negative way, just again, what I've glanced so far, he seems to, much like Carretzas, cut inside and then, try the far post finish, only coming in from the left, so on his stronger right foot. I would say so far, he seems to me like more of a highlight player than a super consistent player, which I guess could give you some pause because, as you mentioned, he's already 23 years old and it's his first time in a top league, even though there are, I guess, mitigating circumstances, as you kind of alluded to with the Stuttgart deal that fell through. And if he went to Stuttgart last season, then he would have been more expensive or just not available for Dortmund. So I guess they are kind of betting on the big fish in a small pond kind of thing. Again, somewhat similar to Veerman. And in some ways that should help them, play a lot of these Bundesliga games where Dortmund need to be dominant on the ball, where the opponent won't make them the gift of opening the game up a little bit. And on another level, it also helps because, as you already mentioned, when you sign these guys from smaller leagues, you can pay them very competitive wages without having to go, bankrupt. I think we've seen a concerted effort from Dortmund this season to kind of clean up their payroll, and that is going to probably be concluded in a way with Sabitzer leaving either late this transfer window or when his contract runs out next season. And then it kind of feels like they are rid of all bad contracts, and all these new guys coming in from less competitive leagues, let's say, have all signed much more manageable contracts. And that is also quite healthy, because chances are when you make so many transfers, not all of them will work out, and then you're not riddled yourself with bad contracts that the players will want to sit out.
Yeah, exactly. It will also be much easier for other receiving clubs to stem that salary, if that makes sense. So, there were rumors, I don't know if they were actually true, but sort of reports that Cologne are looking at Sabitzer and then, might have taken one quick glimpse at his salary and then were like, nope. But again, I have no idea if that was actually true or if I just read a parody tweet wrong. No idea, but Matthias, in terms of fit, is this something you can get excited about? Because you haven't really had the chance yet to talk, of course, about Carezas, of whom we've seen a little bit already in friendlies. I know you're not Mr. Preseason per se, but still, does this tickle you in any sort of way to know you have two probably very technically gifted number 10s and probably a lot of playmaking capabilities right in the middle of the field now?
In theory, yes. From what I saw from Carezas, I was impressed. I thought that was really good. Dortmund, I guess, increasing creativity and passing and a way to unlock teams is something that they desperately need, because we always know how well Dortmund do against a low block side that just doesn't come out. And the more creativity you have, directness is fine, but directness doesn't help you if you're just running against a wall. So increasing the creativity and inventiveness, I think, is very good. Proof will be in the pudding, because I don't really know these players. So it's not like that year when you had a Bellingham and a Haaland came in. It's like I already kind of knew what these players were going to be, whereas with these players I don't really do that, aside from Joey Veerman. But I'm optimistic. I'm pleased with the transfer activity overall, I'd have to say, especially in a creative attacking sense. I still have some very serious questions defensively, but hopefully those get addressed here soon.
You mean with Fort, for example, from Barcelona, the right back? That's certainly a rumor.
Yeah, or just, granted, right now Schlotterbeck is out, but and again, yes, you said it correctly. I don't really care about preseason friendlies, but it really, really looked bad against Roma defensively. And you have to just take into account that you may not have Anton and Schlotterbeck every single week. And I just have some concerns after that, and some concerns at fullback position. These are just areas where I'm like, it's good if everyone is fit and playing well, but over a very long season, Dortmund plays very long seasons, that consistency is an issue. But I also appreciate the fact that you can't address every issue in one transfer window. That's highly unlikely, especially when you have quite a few you need to get through. And so you bring in overall very young players or just young players to address the attacking side. I'm sure the rest will be taken care of. But yeah, I'm happy overall, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we can extend that take a little bit because Joey Veerman is also not exactly Mr. Defensive midfielder, if you will, even though he's also playing on the number 6 spot. But yeah, he is not adding defensive rigidity with his imposing physique, let's say. But yeah, let's talk about him because he was also announced today. 27-year-old from PSV. Dortmund did just trigger his release clause. That was set to expire on the 20th, and they will be paying 22 million euros for him. He had a very successful time at PSV, winning the Eredivisie in the past 3 years and 2 cup victories in 2022 and 2023, and he has also been fitted with a 5-year deal. Yeah, and I guess his main skill, as we have already teased a little bit, is ball progression. You know, that's what he is known for. That's his bread and butter. He also has a very good shot from distance, and according to himself, he plays either the 6 or the 8, and if he's playing in the 6th position, he's more of a building from deep kind of playmaker, and if he's playing number 8, he's more focused on scoring goals and providing assists, but he's also said himself that he's a football player and not much of a defender, if you will. And yeah, of course, can always say that ball control and being good in position is a very valuable thing and also does help to defend your own goal, because if you have the ball, your opponent can't score. But if you don't have the ball, you still need to defend, of course. And yeah, that's of course not his strong point. So Matthias, since you said that you know him a little bit better, what's your take on this transfer?
Well, I have to admit I cheated a little bit. And when it looked like the transfer was happening and now that it's through, I texted a good friend of mine who's from the Netherlands, who's very much a Dutch football insider. Shout out to Guido. And talked a little bit about Joey Veerman and what to expect, what not to expect, and what not to do with him. That was really the interesting insight there. Is you already mentioned it. He's not a defensive player. In fact, he is a defensive liability. Probably works best if he's not a lone defensive midfielder, but has a more physical partner with him in a double pivot situation. If pressed very intensively, he tends to have issues in picking the pass. If he's given a little bit of time, he can absolutely tear teams apart. But if heavily pressed, there are some issues. My buddy told me one of the best examples is when the Netherlands played against Austria, and Austria, which is not a high quality team, but pressed him specifically, and it just all completely fell apart. I mean, his success rate was really bad. He was isolated many times and just turned over the ball consistently. And of course, the Bundesliga being way more physical than the Eredivisie, I do have some concerns there, unless, of course, they pair him in a double pivot and allow him to shine the way he is, because Dortmund do lack that deeper playmaker type that can help unlock their talented attacking forward-minded players and can progress the ball forward well and with good, let's call it defense unlocking passes. And Joey Veerman can absolutely do that. But if they are in a situation where they're heavily pressed, he's not really the right choice. So that leads me to think, he may be the perfect guy to put in against a team like, say, an Augsburg or so on. But then when you're playing a Leipzig or a Bayern or a Stuttgart, who are obviously way more aggressive, then maybe he's not the right choice in that deep of a position, because then you will start losing the ball in very vulnerable positions on the pitch. So I guess if the final note I got was, if used correctly, he's absolutely brilliant. If used incorrectly, he will be your greatest liability.
Yeah, very interesting. Of course, Dortmund do have a lot of options systematically. They could play, it doesn't need to be a double pivot. They could play Bellingham, Mecha, and Veerman as sort of a 3-type player midfield, maybe in a 4-3-3 even. Who knows? Or not sure that's going to happen, honestly, but they, of course, have the option. Lars, similar question to you, maybe in the context of Joe Bellingham. Does Joe Bellingham have to fear for his starting spot now, or do you think that Veerman is more of a depth piece that will be used situationally to terrorize low block defenses? What's your take on this signing?
It's an interesting question because I honestly can't really agree with what Guido told Matthias. Now, I will admit that Guido probably watches the Eredivisie a bit more closely than I do, but from what I've seen from Veerman, I don't really see how he has this massive issue against pressing opponents. For example, in the Champions League against Bayern, there were a number of situations where he played his way out of the pressing very well and kind of instigated, counterattacks. And given the fact that he's easily their best passer, not just from central midfield, but he's immediately their best passer on the entire team, I think you want him precisely against good opponents because you need an outlet in terms of having possession. So maybe those are the games that you pair him with both Mecha and Bellingham just to have more muscle in midfield. But I don't think he's necessarily just a player to help you break down, defensive blocks. I would actually be a bit disappointed if that turned out to be the case, because I don't think you spend this amount of money and give a 5-year contract to a 27-year-old unless you're pretty convinced that he can help you across the board, for a full season and, 5 years. I mean, he's going to be here until he's 32 or, something went wrong kind of, because obviously he has committed his entire prime or the entire prime of his career to, this move. So as it pertains then to Bellingham, I think he's definitely on alert, if that makes sense. I think if Bellingham doesn't progress in terms of, his ball playing, then, he shouldn't have a space in the starting 11. I haven't been particularly impressed with anything Bellingham's done over the summer outside of, training his body. I haven't seen any real improvement in preseason. Now, as everyone will know, preseason doesn't really matter, but you can still try to take something from it. And honestly, I think the only way Bellingham kind of works would be as the defensive muscle to Veerman's ball-playing abilities. Because, as Matthias mentioned, you definitely want someone else there. I think, to me, someone described Veerman as like a poor man's Toni Kroos. So someone, who can dictate the game from a deep midfield position, but only in name be a defensive midfielder. I don't think Toni Kroos was ever someone who won a lot of duels for Real Madrid or the Germany national team. He always had, be that, someone like Casemiro or Sami Khedira or at the national team, or someone to provide a bit of muscle and athleticism. And I think Veerman needs that as well. So maybe that's an option with Veerman and Bellingham playing together in those games when Mecha isn't available. But quite honestly, I would expect Veerman to be a starter sooner than later, because otherwise I don't understand why you would make this deal, because on paper it's the one deal that sticks out like a sore thumb, because the other signings this summer were 18, 18, 19, 18, and 23. And now you gave someone a contract until he's 32. So that better be the one player you are damn sure about is immediately making you better.
Yeah, I think he's going to have an immediate impact, and it would not surprise me if we see them some sort of starting capacity already on Saturday, honestly, but maybe not. Who knows? But I'll be honest, I'm actually quite excited about him, because I do see the upside with him. I see the the passing ability that is going to complement Felix Metscher extremely well. And I think especially teams out of possession against Dortmund will have to game plan like hell for Dortmund if you have a Metscher Veerman pairing in midfield and then the Greek double 10 in front. I think then you have a lot of technical players that all can play make and play passes. And of course, I would even include Riasson to some extent, even though he's not a natural playmaker per se, but he did rack up a lot of assists, and I think that Dortmund's passing and ball progression is going to look much smoother going forward. And if we talk about goals from distance and shots attempted from distance, which is of course also another good measure to, especially against the low block. We now have two players in Metscher and Veerman who can really score those. That's maybe the one, not the one deficit, but definitely a glaring one of Joe Bellingham, that he is not really finding the net yet. And Veerman is someone that definitely can pop up at the edge of the box, and especially if you have players that can really weigh a layoff. He is really shown that when he gets the space and time close to the edge of the box, that he just knows how to slot these away because his shooting technique is just really that good. So I retweeted yesterday, but in some games I could see the floodgates really open for Dortmund, because how Carretzas can ding these in from the right corner of the penalty box, and then you have with Veerman someone who can also score from distance. So there could be a game here or there where Dortmund maybe score 6-7 goals or something like that, and then the floodgates will open. But of course, like you said, Matthias, to me, a bigger question mark really going into the season is how is the defensive rigidity of Dortmund. Last season, they were the best defense in the Bundesliga by just conceding, 30 goals or 34 goals in the end. Somewhere around that was definitely a relatively low number, especially for Dortmund. Maybe they got lucky here and there, but I think over the whole course of the season, it's hard to argue with a number like that. And of course, when you have a back three, one of your defenders or center backs rather is also, I guess, tasked with playing a holding six more or less by moving up the field out of possession in certain situations. So I guess that will compensate a little bit for Veerman probably not being fitted right next to let's say more physical number 6. But nevertheless, that's something we have to worry about. And I think we can worry about that as soon as next Saturday, because Dortmund do host Bayern in the Super Cup. Matthias, you already talked a little bit about the defensive frailties against Roma. What kind of game can we even expect from the Super Cup? Dortmund have been out of that competition for quite a while now. But personally, I'm quite happy that this is the start of the season for us. It's sort of a glorified friendly, as I always say. If you win it, it means a lot. If you lose it, it's irrelevant. So it's, of course, instead of the first DFB Pokal round, which Dortmund will play midweek after the Bundesliga season opener. But still, is this a first good test for the Black and Yellows, or do you think it's still one of those games that's just going to come too soon to really say where Dortmund are at in terms of their development and just status quo?
Well, I mean, I think it is a good early test because, again, it is a test. Yeah, there's a little bit of prestige. Of course, it's going against Bayern, so there's always a little bit something added there. I think both teams are still finding themselves. So it'll be a good way to kind of see some tendencies. I mean, obviously, these new players are like, let's see, today is the 18th. So, I mean, they'll be playing after 3 days of training, essentially 4 days of training. The newest guys, it's a little hard, a little early to tell that. I think really true long-term tendencies you can really only start to see maybe in October anyway. So anything before that is a little bit early days, just from a form standpoint. I'd be really curious just to see with these new additions if that means there's going to be change formationally, tactics-wise from Kovac. If you're going to stick with a back five, where the team is going in that. I think that's the one that's more interesting to me rather than judging Dortmund's quality of play at this point already. I think had all of these new signings come a month ago, then, or at least 2-3 weeks ago, I think then you could probably tell a little bit more, but it's super, super early with a lot of these. So I think it's more just a really good test match that has a little bit more meaning than your regular friendly, but not so much meaning that it's season defining in any way.
Yeah, for sure not season defining, even though winning a trophy is always nice. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that if it's a draw after 90 minutes, I don't think there's extra time. I think it goes straight to penalties. At least that's how it was in the past. Lars, do you think we would see once again the inverted fullbacks with Riasson on the left and Svensson on the right, or maybe Bayer on the right instead of Svensson? Or do we think that there's going to be well, an inversion of the inversion?
I mean, if they are treating this as an extension of preseason, and, there's really no reason why they wouldn't, because I'm sure Veerman is going to get some minutes. I'm pretty sure Konstantelias is going to be in the squad, but maybe not playing because after the birth of his second child, he went back to Greece, and I think he's now back in Germany, but his first training session will then be on Wednesday, so there's a bit of a question mark to me how much he's going to play. So if they treat it as an extension of preseason, then presumably they would also keep doing this inversion thing, which I still don't really understand what the logic is. Whether that's Bayer or Svensson, I think Riasson has his place pretty much on lockup at this point, unless, he needs to be load managed because he only joined the team a little bit later because Norway went further in the World Cup than most of the other Dortmund guys. I guess it's going to stay the same, and I really hope someone asks Niko Kovac maybe, after that game, because it's not really a pre-game press conference kind of topic, but at some point I would like to get an insight into what the idea is, because I really don't understand it. I don't have much of a clue or, an inkling of what they are trying to do there. I thought it was just cross-training Svensson and Bayer because they don't really have much cover. So they can play on both sides, which we kind of know Riasson can do because he's done it in the past. But seeing as Riasson also played on the left, I'm kind of stumped. I don't really have an explanation that makes too much sense. But I'm guessing we are going to see it again on Saturday.
Yeah, for sure. Matthias, what else do you want to see from Dortmund in this game on Saturday? Or what are you excited about?
Well, I mean, I'd love to see a win for once. That would be a nice change. To be perfectly honest, I really don't have any expectations going into matches like this. It's more about I want to be entertained. I want to see Dortmund play entertaining football because, again, yeah, it's a trophy, blah blah blah, but not one that anybody really cares too much about. So just go out there and have some fun with it has that little bit more of an edge. See some of the new players in a more serious environment, and kind of get maybe a slight inkling as to what we might expect. Now, of course, we don't exactly know what we're going to expect because there are going to be changes to this Dortmund lineup within the next 6 to 8 weeks anyway. So, yeah, I'd like to see some more tactical flexibility on display, and I don't know if that's really going to happen because I'm just not huge on a back three personally. Especially not if one of the players is going to be Ben Sebaini. maybe that's just me. But
no, it's not just you.
that's something I'd really like to see, but I understand Dortmund is a little bit limited right now as in terms of choice in their back line.
Yeah, for sure. Last FC Bayern have brought in Nathaniel Brown and Ismail Sabiri from PSV and Frankfurt respectively. Do you think that they had an off-season that's going to significantly improve them, or do you think that FC Bayern are going to be as good as last year or maybe even worse?
Well, the thing is that you can't really improve upon them too much. I think Nathaniel Brown is probably an improvement on what was their weakest position last season, left back, because obviously Alphonso Davies has dealt with a lot of injury issues over the last, 18, 24 months or so. And last season, they kind of had to mix and match, whether that was Stanisic or Guerrero at times. I think Tom Bischoff played a little bit of left back, so they have now convincingly, filled that spot with Nathaniel Brown, who's going to start for Germany for the next, 10, 12 years. Had a decent run at the World Cup as well, kind of overtook David Raum late in the process. I can't really speak too much about Saibari. Obviously, I watched him at the World Cup with Morocco as well. He's, I think, scored in 3 games. I haven't really followed their preseason outside of the Musiala stuff where he collapsed twice in, I think, 3 or 4 days. He actually put out a statement during our recording that he is suffering from some sort of neurological condition, which isn't really serious or, at least not very dangerous. It's just that at times it can happen that he collapses and looks out of it, but, it's apparently, as he said, nothing to really worry about. The interesting thing for Saturday is obviously that we are not going to see Bayern anywhere close to full strength because, for example, I don't expect to see Harry Kane in the starting lineup just because he had a longer vacation after England made it to the third place game at the World Cup. And I'm not sure that he's played too much in preseason so far, so it's probably going to be Saibari starting. Musiala, I would think, is not, starting at this stage of, his, what we should call it. I think if we want to consider the trophy a real trophy, which obviously we don't, then Dortmund are probably catching Bayern at the right time. But honestly, I'm kind of in Matthias's camp. I just want to see, expensive football from Dortmund, show us, that you have added a lot of creativity to the team. Obviously, we don't know exactly who's going to be available or, play too many minutes for Dortmund, but I think it's kind of my general thought for the entire season, and I'm guessing we are going to do a season preview next week then. But my whole approach is, with Bayern, you can't really expect trophies from Dortmund, so I just want to see improvement. And obviously that is in terms of results, especially in the cup competitions, but mostly just in the way, they are looking on the pitch and do I have fun watching the games, which last season mostly came from results, but this season I'm pretty sure could be coming more from what they actually do on the pitch, and they should start this on Saturday because, it's a pretty decent opportunity to kind of make an early statement in the season. Now we can obviously debate how much of a statement it would be, but better to win that game than not to win that game.
Well, I mean, it's definitely always a statement if you beat Bayern, no matter whether it's in the Super Cup or any other time. So that would, of course, be something that you can build momentum of. Of course, whether that's going to last any time longer, I don't know. But certainly, I think everyone at Dortmund will feel much better if they win this game rather than lose it or, lose it in embarrassing fashion. Also, of course, I'm really intrigued to just see how Gadou will do, since he is, a very exciting young center back. But I think Bayern will be also a really good test for him to see at what level he is at. I assume that Anton will rotate into the squad again after he was rested against Roma to play then instead of Mane. But yeah, I hope there will be a little bit of rotation too, that we see the quote-unquote younger players as well. And yeah, I also wonder if Inacio will start if Giannis is not going to play. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm excited about this game. I'm, as of right now, very excited about any Dortmund game, and hopefully that they can confirm that going forward. But there are a couple of other points still to discuss real quick. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that Ramay, the, I guess, fourth goalkeeper, or however you want to call it, has moved on for now as a loan to Copenhagen. So that's someone that's not exactly resolved, but it does, I think, it is a dry loan. So I guess we'll deal with it later. But it is good that he is off the books and away from the squad now, because he was just one guy too many, I guess. Dortmund have their goalkeeper situation sorted out otherwise. Maybe that was just the deal Dortmund made to be prepared for the eventuality of Kobe leaving. Doesn't look like it's going to happen at this point. So yeah, he is fortunately or unfortunately not needed, depending on how you see it. But yeah, don't think we need to discuss that too much. But Matthias, there's one player we've talked a little bit about recently. It's Marcel Sabitzer, with Veerman is maybe slipping down the pecking order even more so. Do you think that he will stick around, considering his wages and that the fact that it's his last year on the Dortmund contract, or do you think we will see a move elsewhere before the end of the transfer window?
Well, I'd hope for all parties that it's the latter situation, because I don't really see him needed much anymore. I mean, there are other players that are younger, that don't have more of a future invested in, that are ahead of him. I think Veerman coming in now just adds more depth into that position, that general area. Not that Sabitzer and Veerman are even remotely the same type of player. But I mean, Bellingham, Mecha, Chukwuemeka, they're just ahead of Sabitzer, as they should be. If they're not ahead of him at this point, given their respective ages, then there's a greater issue on both sides. So I think Sabitzer, yeah, I mean, the problem, of course, being wage expectations, that he may just think, I'll sit this one out. But I don't, again, that's just speculative. I would think that Dortmund are going to look and see if they can move him on. If not, I don't think Kovac will be sad about having him as a rotational option, especially given how deep this season will be for Dortmund. But he definitely falls into the category of surplus to requirements, in my opinion. And the sooner you could move on from him, I think the better for both the club and the player.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be a deadline situation. I lack the imagination that he's going to stick around, but then again, I still think that probably Kovac values him, and he is on 8 or 9 million euros a year, maybe even more. So just for that could be a reason to not make a move, honestly. I don't know if he is getting a good, exciting offer too. That's also, of course, something to consider. But yeah, I just hope that we'll see Dortmund's full strength lineup sooner rather than later, because that to me looks very enticing. And of course, I still want to see what the solution for Maxi Bayer is. Lars, do you think there's any version where Maximilian Bayer actually is also heading for the door this summer already, or sort of reading the tea leaves, or do you think that him playing as a wing back is really going to be the, I don't know if long-term solution, but this season's solution? Feels a little iffy to me as well.
He's 100% not leaving. Not least of which because at some point Dortmund are running out of association-grown players, which they need to field the full Champions League squad with all these foreign signings. I can't even tell you how shocked I would be if a transfer were to happen with Maximilian Bayer this summer. I think if they go for, Hector Ford or Josh Achampong or what was it, Marcus Pedersen. So those are the three rumored, I don't know if targets is the right word for, the fullback position or the wingback position. If that also happens, then you kind of have those positions covered a bit more. Then you could maybe look at using Bayer again in a more attacking role. I think a lot of people are kind of excited by the idea of playing Bayer as the central forward with Carezas and Konstantelias behind him, because he offers those deep runs that Girassi and Silva don't. He could also just be, playing in the left, left wing is probably not the right word, but that position that we are kind of giving to Konstantelias at some point this season, and which in the last few games Inacio has played. Would I be super surprised if Bayer played there on Saturday against Bayern, because you need his running ability to press a little bit? I wouldn't be. So I think there are enough games to go around for everyone to be happy enough. And if something happens in attack, I would be surprised if it was Bayer and not, for example, Fabio Silva, who just presumably doesn't see himself as, just a substitution option. And there's still like a little bit of not hope necessarily, but I wouldn't be super surprised if someone came in with a late offer for Girassi, because goal scorers are always in demand, and in either case Maximilian Bayer is going to be here, not least because he wants to be here. He really likes it in Dortmund. I think he is one of the few players that I could see spend like the majority of their career here, and if that takes one season of playing out of position a little bit, he doesn't seem to be the kind of guy who would jump ship.
As a center forward with all this playmaking and the way he really carved his way into Bundesliga football with Hoffenheim, it was really those runs. To get in front, or rather in behind the back line, and being at the end of his passes. That's how he scored a lot of his goals. There was a lot of transition moments, and it would be sad to sort of lose that quality, because that's something that he really does exceptionally well. So hope is that he is going to really unfold his strengths at some point, I guess. And that being said, we haven't really talked that much about Inacio, of course, but for him, similar scenario. Not that I expect him to leave, but of course he will get probably a little bit less playing time now than he otherwise would have. But he's also super young, and I don't think it would have been on the cards for him to be someone getting starter minutes a lot anyway. But just feel like it should have been mentioned, and I also wonder how clinical Dortmund are going to be in comparison to last season. Girassi, especially in the first half of last season, did not have his best form. I wonder if Dortmund can finally create more chances for him to be at the end of, because if there's one thing that we really did frown upon, is the amount of touches and shots from inside the box that Dortmund had last season, and chance creation overall was, of course, a problem. I think that has been addressed to a certain extent. But clinical finishing might be something that Dortmund can't maybe replicate as well as they had it actually last season, because that was really interesting. And of course, something I'm excited about is attacking set pieces, because they now have a lot of players that can whip the ball in really well. Of course, I guess starting with Riasson, but Carezza's also really good at that stuff. Svensson certainly has a good left foot. to swing them in, and Konstantelias also has those capabilities. So I am definitely intrigued to see how Dortmund are doing on attacking set plays, but at the same time, defensive set plays. The entire preseason, I think the word sad pieces unfortunately was trending multiple times in my head at least. So yeah, I wonder how they're going to sort this out. So long story short, I'm very excited about the future, and I think that Dortmund will look more good on possession, but how they will look off the ball, I still have several question marks, just like Matthias has too. So yeah, I guess we are in monitoring the situation mode. Matthias, do you have any other thoughts, since you were really not on for quite a while? And also, before I forget, what do you make of the new TV deal that the Bundesliga have, I guess, secured for the US market? Are you going to be watching the Bundesliga somewhere between USA Network and Fandango, or are you going to tune into Peacock and Telemundo to enjoy the Bundesliga more in Spanish?
Okay. So, I mean, I'm not going to say you rage baited me, but I do have some very strong opinions on the TV deal that the Bundesliga got relegated to. And honestly, you tripped my trigger so much I already forgot the first part of your question.
Just if you had any general thoughts to add, basically.
No, I mean, honestly, until about 2 weeks ago, I was getting antsy as far as Dortmund's lack of transfer activity. I was like, okay, what's going on? You didn't know the whole summer was happening? Are you surprised it's June, July, and August? You know, given that other teams have been significantly more active, that has been largely tempered now, obviously, with the flurry of activity in the last couple of weeks. As far as the TV deal goes, I think it's absolute trash, to be perfectly honest. I mean, when I looked into it, first of all, this whole USA Network Fandango, I don't even know what to call it, nets the Bundesliga, I believe, $10 million less, or 10 million euros, 10 million something. And that's already, I think, a significant blow as far as the fact that everyone else, it looks like, you know, the Premier League keeps increasing their TV revenue, even though I don't know what, you know, in the US, the deal will be coming up, I believe, after this season. Whereas the Bundesliga is now taking less money. And
when they're not, actually, that's wrong. That was just the initial report.
Okay. All right.
But they just separated the English rights and Spanish rights.
So you combine it.
Telemundo and Peacock basically are paying those 10 millions to make up for it.
Fine. It's still a shit deal because USA Network and Fandango, I mean, gosh, it frustrates me as a Bundesliga fan and a consumer, because I'm like, wait, now I've got to figure that out. And that's when I went, wait, no. When I found out it's on Telemundo, I'm going to take the World Cup was the perfect situation because I watched exclusively on Telemundo because we have Peacock, and I didn't want to get a Fox Sports subscription for 6 weeks. And I was like, I just can't stand all these other subscriptions because we don't have quote unquote regular TV, and regular TV wouldn't have helped me with the Bundesliga anyway, either now or necessarily even previously. So I'm just going to enjoy it, watching it in Spanish. It's a lot of fun. Gets me riled up and wakes me up in the morning. So in that regard, even though I'm frustrated that some of the English commentators that I've really enjoyed watching over the last few years, I will no longer enjoy. I'm totally fine with it. If anything, now all of my soccer watching has been consolidated to Paramount Plus because of Serie A and obviously the European competitions, and Peacock because of the Spanish language Bundesliga deal and the Premier League. Now, if it's true that the 20 million plus 10 million, you get the 30 million, that's still not a great sign, Stefan, because that's fiscal stagnation versus growth. And I don't know if that's really a great sign for the Bundesliga status in the American market, at least. I was disappointed that one couldn't get something better going.
Well, I will approach it with an open mind. Obviously, Fandango will be free to watch, I guess. You'll just need to download the app. I already done that on my smart TV, so I'm intrigued on how that will look. I hope, and that's of course just something personal, that USA will actually do a good job covering the Bundesliga, but I fear that they might just sort of pick up the international feed that the DFL is already offering and not really do much, extracurricular stuff around. I haven't really talked to Archie Rentut yet about how he is going to get on, but hopefully we will see him in some sort of capacity. But yeah, the Bundesliga is desperate for some more color around it in terms of reporting. I don't know if it's going to be more accessible now with that deal. Certainly ESPN has a lot of audience also on social media. If you want to compare what Fandango and USA Network bring to the table versus ESPN, then obviously ESPN dwarfs that. But still, I hope that the image quality is going to improve a little bit. USA, when they show Premier League, they sometimes offer 4K transmissions, which is something I hope the Bundesliga does as well, because it is not 2010 anymore, even though I think even in 2010 we had 4K transmissions already in Germany, and here we're just a little bit less advanced what these things are concerned. So I'll be honest, I am hoping for the best, but I think I'm going to watch a lot of the Spanish feeds as well, even though I have, of course, access to Fandango and USA Network and Telemundo and Peacock all the same. So, I'm also very interested what our listeners, especially, of course, from the US, think about the deal. So, we already had a couple of emails about that where people were had a similar reaction to yours, Matthias. But let us know in the YouTube comments as well, because I just want to know how that's going to maybe change your Bundesliga watching habits, if it's going to improve something, maybe gives you more access, or if you don't like that new deal at all, because of course Fandango doesn't really sound like something you associate with sports yet, but they are, I guess, working on it.
Stefan, I do have one follow-up question to that, because you mentioned it, obviously the first round of the DFB Pokal is coming up. And if I remember correctly, the DFB Pokal transmission, there aren't any. Unless something has happened in the last 24 hours.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
There was nothing.
And on top of that, you can't watch Zweite Bundesliga either right now in the United States. You'll need a VPN or something and watch the UK version or so on YouTube. But yeah, that's not good either for the Zweite Bundesliga or for the Bundesliga as a whole, since the second division also, has some interesting teams in there, like Wolfsburg. I'm kidding. But no, honestly, as of right now, I think it's still a lot of things need to be sorted, and you would hope that as the second division has already started and the DFB Pokal first round is this weekend, except for Dortmund and Bayern, of course, you would hope that these things would have been sorted. But it appears as though they are not, and that also is very disappointing. And you would expect better. And you would also expect better from the DFL to make sure that these, very essential parts of marketing your product are taken care of. That are just sort of my thoughts on it. But yeah, very good point. Anyway, I guess that concludes our show. And as always, thank you for listening. We'll be back with more analysis after the Super Cup match and the season preview. If you have any prediction categories you want us to include, then please put them into the YouTube comments. And Other than that, as always, thank you for listening. Until next time, good.